Greetings all, this is Justin.
And this is Nick.
And welcome back to the Hangar Bay.
Indeed. Over the last weekend, or the weekend before we recorded this video, we had the Coruscant Invitational, the first sort of big premiere event in X-Men 2nd Edition. And we had a lot of really cool results from that. Watch the video up here if you want to see that. Including amongst all of that was a decent amount of Imperial Alpha Strike lists.
There was a lot, wasn't there?
Indeed. Now, Alpha Strike lists kind of existed at one stage on each of the three factions in 1st Edition. But in terms of the way it should function, it really does fit in the wheelhouse of the Empire. Very much so. It's all about efficiency and just getting hits and rerolls and all that kind of stuff. It's very much an Imperial thing. And a lot of those elements in 1st Edition that made the Scum faction, the Rebel faction, able to Alpha Strike efficiently have been essentially taken away. They were just too efficient, worked too well, too versatile, whatever. Moving forward, also, apart from everything else being taken away from the other factions, within the Empire faction, two platforms in particular have had a real push in terms of power level.
Yeah, definitely. So those two are the TIE Punisher and the TIE Bomber.
For example, the TIE Bomber was originally 16 points. In 2nd Edition, that'd be 32 points. The cheapest one now is 28 points. Plus, there's also the baked-in ability. Plus, there's also an extra bomb slot, a gunner slot, all that kind of stuff. So, absolutely a decent push in power level. And apart from anything else, it also can drop bombs curved, which feels great.
Yeah.
Now, every single TIE Bomber can drop a bomb like even Azamine, kind of. Just a little curves.
Tinier.
But it's very relevant when we have things like proton bombs and seismic charges floating around where sort of another centimetre to the left or right makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
If it means you can or cannot reach a rock, that's everything with a seismic charge. Also, with the TIE Punisher, our old cheapest platform was 21 points, would be 42 points now. Moving forward, our cheapest platform is 36, 6 points cheaper.
And they've also been given a bit of a boost on the dial as well. They've now got the red stops.
Yeah, the red stop's a huge deal. And that's it in terms of the dial. All pretty straightforward. Also, their pilot abilities, which we will talk about when we get into the lists. Some of them have been tweaked a little bit just to be a bit more relevant, a bit more consistent. This is true of both platforms.
They were on a small base as well in 1st Edition.
Good point.
Moving up to the medium, it's given them a bit more...
Bit more reach.
Yeah,
a bit more positioning. I find the medium base very interesting. A lot of people talk about it like, I don't know how to sort of quantify it. Nor do I really. It still fits in tight gaps in the right situation. It's very different to a large base, despite it only being like, what, half a base width extra, or like 1 centimetre difference from a large base. But the difference is still pretty huge.
So now both the TIE Bomber and the TIE Punisher also have the reload function. The TIE Bomber's is red, but realistically, it's not that bad.
Still upside.
Yeah.
It's still upside. And look, honestly, you're probably not going to be shooting or needing to take other actions to turn your user anyway. Although there's no more extra munitions, there's basically no need for it anymore. Apart from reload, most of the ordnance actually have several charges on them, that kind of stuff. But the presence of reload means you basically never completely without entirely. If your opponent is pressuring your ship, they're diving on your TIE Bomber with several different Y-Wings and X-Wings or whatever, you're not going to have a chance to reload. But the idea is you don't want to get in that situation anyway.
That's true.
If you have multiple platforms, you can peel off one, reload, bring it back around and fire your proton or your cluster or whatever you want. Even bombs as well. And always forget, bombs can also be reloaded now. It's not every single card gets an extra charge anymore. It's just one. You pick one. But if you have bombs and ordnance, that's really good as well because you can choose and sort of adjust the situation you're in. Every TIE Bomber and Punisher gets that as a baseline thing, and it's really good. It's really versatile.
Yeah, I haven't flown either of these yet, but talking about them today, it really does make me want to have a bit of a go on them.
After looking at the tournament results, I think we absolutely should have a play around with them on the channel.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to these lists.
The first one is from Tim Coughlin. The list is called No Primary Weapons. It has Redline with Trajectory Simulator, Advanced Proton Torpedoes, Homing Missiles, Cluster Missiles, Skilled Bombardier, Proton Bombs, and Ablative Plating.
We have 2 Scimitar Squadron pilots. These lists are slightly different. Both have Skilled Bombardier, but the first one has ion missiles, proton bombs, and cannonettes. The second one has homing missiles, seismic charges, and proximity mines.
And the final ship is a new squadron pilot with Advanced Slam, the XG-1 Assault configuration, and tractor beam.
Now, I'm sure we will come to talk more about the Alpha Class Starwing in later videos. The fact of the matter is, in the early days of this meta that we're seeing here, we're not seeing it appear in a lot of Alpha Strike lists. It's probably simply because the Punisher and the Bomber got way more of a push than it did. It still is slightly cheaper. Its configurations are now free. It's doing well, but not as well. I think that's the ultimate takeaway from here.
And personally, I find that quite interesting because I thought the Alpha Class Starwing would have a bit more of a presence because it does have the slam function.
Yeah, and with the Arsenal loadout, you can slam and fire missiles. It does seem to be a nice bit of versatility. Just, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't seem to be as good. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. This version of the Alpha Class Starwing does not use the Arsenal loadout. It uses the assault configuration. So you can fire that tractor beam even after you've slammed or reloaded. You wouldn't reload in this list, but you can if you want to. If you, I don't know.
Feel like it.
If you feel like it, for sure. But the upside here is you have a tractor beam and you can move your opponents towards your bombs, which is a nice bit of upside. That's particularly potent against any kind of bomb that triggers on impact. And on this list, we have cannonettes, proximity mines, and that's it. So that's a nice bit of upside. Look, especially with Cannonet, that's a really powerful bit of control. If you can get any sort of quasi-important ship on your opponent's squad onto that Cannonet and just force them to do a 1 forward on the back of already being tracked the previous turn, you can probably get a couple of nice hits on it.
Yeah, definitely.
Which should take care of it quite nicely. Let's talk about Redline while we're here.
Yeah, Redline is just awesome.
Just awesome. Doing quite well. Not a massive design change moving into 2nd edition, but it's just clean up a bit. He gets a lock after any action, and it does specify acquire a lock. It does not say take a lock action. You can do red actions and get locks. Nice. He can have up to 2 locks, but the whole thing is he can just lock really easily. And from that point of view, people are really leaning into strategies using proton torpedoes, which is sort of proving to be the premier bit of ordnance in the game right now. On this list, you've got advanced proton torpedoes and homing missile. Both of these are good utility options. I am concerned that they are situational, and in some situations you won't get to either situation in a certain game, and that might hurt. Look, for the same cost, you can take proton torpedoes, and maybe that's just the better option. I don't know. I can't see either of these being relevant too frequently. Homing missiles is a nice bit of upside against aces, but you have to pressure your opponent in just the right way to force them to take damage off of it. Advanced proton torpedoes is fun, but you have to be in range 1, so yeah. My brain just goes, I want consistency, I want proton torpedoes, because it's dope, even for 9 points.
Yeah.
Even for losing both of these, I think it's probably the right call. You've also got cluster missiles as well, and if I was to keep any 3 of these, I'd definitely keep that one. It gives you an answer to swarms, which proton torpedoes really doesn't do that well.
No.
Which is cool. Apart from that, you could think about dropping cluster missiles entirely, only having 1 piece of ordnance, or 2, or whatever. It gives you points on the other ships, but having said that, there's nothing else I'd really add on to the rest of the ships. You could turn the Alpha Class Starwing into an ordnance platform if you really wanted to. But then again, yeah, it's not really doing what you want it to do, so I'm happy to leave it as is.
Yeah.
Just having a look at the bomb package on Redline, we only have proton bombs. Again, I don't think it's right to take 3 different pieces of ordnance and only 1 bomb. I think 2 and 2 is probably a bit more correct.
Yeah.
Making sure you have both of those things. You can use bombs and ordnance in the same turn. If you can do that consistently, you can just push a lot of damage across the table. Proton bombs is great, but alongside seismic charges, that flexibility is just fantastic. If you have a rock near the back of your ship, I'm sorry, I know you're using my fingers, but bear with me, people. You drop a bomb, you can make the proton bomb explode right there. Or if there's a rock over here, you drop a seismic charge, you can make that explode. And you have choices, and you can zone better with those bombs. Having a look at the packages we have on the TIE bombers, homing missile, ion missiles. Yeah, I mean, we've got seismic and proxy and proton and con. There's lots of different options here.
Yeah. I think he's sort of, trying to
cover all your bases.
Yeah.
Which is a cool thing. My brain just goes, just seismic protons and leave it. There is always an issue when you have too many different options. You forget them. And unless you really want to grind out a list and sort of, do more tournament play, that's fine, but you've got to really be on top of your game and really grind it out.
Yeah.
And even in those situations, I think just going for the more consistent option rather than a whole gamut of options is usually the better thing to do. I know it's boring.
Yeah.
I know I'm just being meta and all that kind of stuff, but that's just how it is usually.
The way that you play.
As fun as it is having different options for casual play, forgetting half your stuff is no fun.
No.
Even in a casual game. But yeah, apart from that, ion missiles on one of the top bombers, I'd probably go for ion missiles on both. Yeah. If I was thinking about how to build this out, how to just sort of go as a strict build on either of them. Skilled Bombardier is fun. I don't think it's required. I'm going like proton seismics on both platforms, for example.
Yeah.
Skilled Bombardier kind of loses a bit of value when your zoning is already that good, when you can already make it explode in situation or latch onto an asteroid one more distance. It might be the difference to reaching something, but whatever. It's really good on a bomber. I get that because you can do the two banks as well as the one straight, the two straight and the one bank. You've got 6 different options all of a sudden. That's fantastic. So yeah, I think there's wiggle room. I think just streamlining this is probably a better option. But Tim, if you're watching, how do you find it? Do you find having lots of different bombs to be a bit confusing? That's my main concern. I only say that because I'd be confused. That's how it is. Yeah, but a cool concept nonetheless. A good amount of platforms. The only thing I'm concerned about is the Alpha Class Starwing. Got to make sure that's sort of firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Make sure you get value out of that. But yeah, cool. Let's move on to the other Patreon list we had submitted this week. This one by Coda that has Redline, Captain Jonas, Saiyan Marana, and Major Vinda.
Redline has advanced sensors and proton torpedoes.
Captain Jonas has proton torpedoes, proxy mines, and elusive.
Sen Marana has marksmanship.
And Major Vinda has the OS-1 Arsenal loadout, advanced slam, fire control systems, and concussion missiles. And this is the ordnance-based Alpha Class Starwing we were talking about before.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is very tight. Major Vinda wants to play around with that kind of strategy.
I like the look of this Alpha Class Starwing a little bit better, personally. Yeah. That's the way I play.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this one costs 53 points. The other one we just spoke about only costs 41.
Yeah.
And that's the trade-off here. The Alpha Class Starwing, just like in the last video we spoke about quad jumpers, the point span between the lowest and highest pilots only 6 points. They've really crushed that down because it's a platform that does not care about initiative like your ace platforms.
Yeah.
And because of that, we can get this build for only 8 more points than a low tier kind of no ordnance build. That's very relevant. It's it helps keep all the pilots relevant on one platform. I hope it does start to perform better. Maybe after a point adjustment, they'll have all 3 platforms firing on all cylinders. But for the time being, yeah, it's good to have options and flexibility. You've got a couple of good, just basic alpha strikers, and one that can slam and just really annoy your opponent with the way it flies and gets around the way they fly.
Redline is a bit...
We're not sure about this, are we?
Yeah. I like having a bit more on it.
A bit more on it. Yeah, it's fair enough. Advanced sensors is a weird option. I think we're looking at this and going, it costs the same as seismic and protons, and maybe we just want seismic and protons.
Yeah.
Look, I know, again, we're talking about meta play, but we look at the results from Coruscant. Basically, Redline, seismic, proton, and proton torpedoes was pretty good. Pretty good. Now, what does advanced sensors do here? It means that you can take your action before you move, and if you need to do that to acquire the perfect lock, that's really good. It means you can do a K-turn and lock, double lock, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, now remember, again, Redline does say acquire a lock. It does not say acquire a lock action, so you can advanced sensors do an action, acquire a lock, and then do the thing, despite the fact that advanced sensors says one action. So he plays around with it quite nicely compared to most other ships. I just like more flexibility. I will say Redline does have a white reload, so yes, he can get lots of proton shots out. I'm just worried that you get both of your protons off, and then your opponent pressures you and doesn't give you a window to reload.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt.
Yeah, and just having one, even if it's a low point bomb, just to be able to throw it out there.
Yeah, like just one seismic charge.
Yeah.
Completely agree. I think what it comes down to is it feels like a stripped back version of Redline, but it costs the same as the tier meta version.
Yeah.
And that's not really a strong trade-off in our opinion. Captain Jonas, however, is awesome, alongside multiple proton torpedoes, alongside the concussion missile. He's basically the Howe Runner of Ordnance. That's the way I think of him now. Really, really solid. And look, if Redline must rely on proton torpedoes, well, at least he has a good payoff for it. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Also, proxy mines and elusive. Not too sure about elusive. There's a decent amount of red on the dial. It's not terrible, but I don't know. I've played around with elusive myself. I've not been entirely convinced by the card. Re-rolling a green dice is often completely inconsequential. You want it to trigger. You want to basically get at least a couple of results out of this in one game to justify what it's doing, and I'm not convinced it does that consistently enough.
Yeah.
Maybe on X-Wings that have Talon rolls, things that have good red maneuvers and lots of green dice to roll.
Yeah.
I don't think the bomber is really what wants to be using it.
Or something with chopper on it.
Yeah,
Well.
yeah, for sure. There's ways to sort of derive more value out of the card.
None of those are Empire things.
Pretty much. I'd just go for something that's more offensive. Go for marksmanship. Go for predator. Something like that.
Yeah. Or use it for points to put in another bomb somewhere.
Or just leave the points as a bid. Remember, you do have Redline. Actually, we haven't spoken about this yet. I think in general, Alpha Strike lists don't really care about a bid, except if you have Redline, which they basically all do. So, yeah. But he has Initiative 5, and that is so relevant right now with Luke Skywalker, Whisper, the Grand Inquisitor, Guri. All of those guys flying around, doing their thing at Initiative 5. Relatively speaking, they're top-tier aces.
Yeah.
Sure, it doesn't help you against Sunterfell or Vader or Fen Rao. Again, they're seeing a lot of play as well. But if you can make sure that Luke Skywalker does not fly after you, that is really relevant.
Yeah.
Hugely relevant. So I don't think we need upgrades that are not that consequential. So I'd take off elusive here. Even switching out for marksmanship. Also, marksmanship's quite good because of rerolls and conversions.
Yeah.
You don't really want another thing with rerolls with Predator. So even saving 2 points, every point you can save here is relevant. And I think that's worth thinking about. Signed Marana. I really like the inclusion of this here.
Just a little cheeky tie.
A little cheeky tie. Wampa's old ability, or Sign's current ability, I should say. It's frustrating because it's so cheap that you should be ignoring this and taking on Redline. That is basically the first target you should be looking at if you're flying against this list. However, it's so just consistent enough and just impactful enough that you shouldn't ignore it. It's such a contradictory thing. It's such a mind game pilot.
Yeah.
And teaming it up with marksmanship is just fantastic. It's so annoying because, sure, it might not trigger all the time, but it's just consistent enough to push damage across the table alongside all of those bombs. I think it's a fantastic inclusion here.
Yeah, definitely.
Really cool idea. And, alongside Major Vinder and all that kind of stuff. There's enough sort of annoying, sort of flexible things in this list. I like lists that have 4 really powerful bombers and ordnance carriers, but if you want to just have a bit of spice with Signed Marana and Major Vinder, I love the idea behind this.
Yeah.
I think the Redline thing is the only thing I'd really tweak in this, but apart from that, really cool, solid idea. Thanks for submitting that one, Coda.
And also, we have some lists from our commenters. This is from Nathan Skelly. It is a Torps and Bomb list at 198 points. It has Colonel Jendon, Captain Jonas, and 2 Gamma Squadron Aces.
And I wanted to make sure we got at least one list with Colonel Jendon because, again, when we're talking about meta play, one of these did make it into the top 8. So let's have a chat about that. He has Moff Jared.
Yes, Captain Jonas has Ruthless, Proton Torpedoes.
And both the Gamma Squadron Aces have the same build. Yep. Ruthless, Proton Torpedoes, Skilled Bombardier, and Proton Bombs. So Colonel Jendon gives you the ability to basically give all of your ships at the very start of the game target locks from all the way across the board. That's actually really huge.
Yeah, and Moff Jared gives your ship an ability to use a boost.
Yes, it's a universal boost across all your ships. It turns red. But it's during the system phase, so your ships can then do a blue maneuver, clear their stress, and target lock or focus or whatever. I was concerned about this because if you don't do a blue maneuver, then you can't target lock for your ordnance. But I guess the thinking here is if you're using Colonel Jendon, you will already have target locks.
Yeah.
Colonel Jendon has already proven himself to be pretty potent alongside Alpha Strike lists. I've flown against it. We've seen it in the meta. We saw at least one list in the Coruscant Invitational. Looks pretty solid. Moff Jared has not proven himself so much meta-wise, but I am very curious about this.
Yeah.
The fact that you can basically use that boost to point an entire squad of Alpha Strikers at your opponent. Terrifying. Now, theoretically speaking, if you've set up well and you're flying well, you probably don't need to do that. But if it's the difference between getting out and into range 3, if it's the difference between getting one more ship in arc, it seems like it has a lot of upside potentially. It is 12 points though. I am just concerned about that. But it's cool. I think a lot of people are sort of hesitant to fly a Lambda shuttle without a crew. We've definitely seen you don't have to. But if you will, yeah, it's pretty solid. And I look at the rest of the list and I don't really think we need to worry about changing the builds and anything else. The rest of the ships already have proton torpedoes. The only thing I would like to see is bombs on Captain Jonas, but it's not crucial. It's not really a bombing list to go alongside everything. I mean, the great thing about the Empire bombers is they can do both. You've already got skill bombardiers and proton bombs on those Gamma Squadron Aces. And that's just enough. I think alongside 3 proton torpedoes, we can sort of lean away from bombing a little bit just to get that working. What's your thoughts on this one, Justin?
It's just a nice list. It's really nice with Moff Jared and Colonel Jendon together. It just gives your bombers that little bit more reach.
I think that's it. I think just making sure you get shots consistently. It's what Moff Jared basically has to do to justify his place here. But I think he can. I think
definitely,
he can.
Yeah.
Really solid idea. Thanks for submitting that one, Nathan. We also have a list here by Agent Stack with Death Rain, Jonas, and 2 Gamma Squadron Aces.
This is a 200-point list. Death Rain has Trajectory Simulator, Cluster Missiles, Skilled Bombardier, Seismic Charges, and Tactical Scrambler.
Jonas has Trick Shot, Barrage Rockets, Skill Bombardier, Proximity Mines, and Shield Upgrade.
And the 2 Gamma Squadron Aces have Trick Shot, Cluster Missiles, Skilled Bombardier, and Proton Bombs.
So those Gamma Squadron Aces are very similar to the bombers in the previous list. We've gone for Cluster Missiles instead, which is alright. I do quite like Cluster Missiles because you can sort of dump the tokens into one single attack or separate attacks. Feels pretty good. It's already an upgrade on the regular 2 dice attack from the bomber, and it gives you an answer to swarms, which is really good.
They've also done Trick Shot instead of Ruthlessness as well. When it works, you're like, that point was worth it.
It's 1 point to occasionally get an extra red dice.
Yeah.
I love it. I love Trick Shot. I'd say it's more consistent and less spiky than Ruthless. So, yeah, that's cool. I mean, I've got no complaints there. I think just that extra bit of flavour, that extra push of damage is worth taking, especially when you can fly en masse, which you've done here. Now, instead of a shuttle, we have Death Rain. And Death Rain can take actions every time he drops bombs, which is fine by me.
Yeah.
But he only has seismic charges, and I really would like to see something else as well as seismic charges. And we've got Skilled Bombardier and Tactical Scrambler. I feel like another bomb is more value than those two things, for example.
Yeah.
Not that it really fits points-wise. If you take those away, you get 4 extra points, so I'm not too sure there.
Well, there is a shield upgrade on Captain Jonas.
Yes, in fact, let's talk about the things which we look at and go, not really sure if that really justifies its place there. There is a shield upgrade on Captain Jonas for sure. There's a Tactical Scrambler on Death Rain, Skilled Bombardier on Death Rain. Skilled Bombardier on the Gamer Squadron Aces is useful.
Yeah.
Just a few things we're looking at going, I'm not too sure. Like, I'd love to be able to upgrade the ordnance on those bombers. If we could get a proton torpedo, even just on one of them is cool. I mean, I know that can't answer swarms as well. There's just a few things here which I'm not too sure about. I think the biggest thing is that shield upgrade. We're not really a huge fan of this unless there is a really good reason to be protecting the hull of something. And Captain Jonas is a bomber, 6 points of health up to 7 points of health. It's upside, but there is better things you can do with those points. I think ultimately is what we're saying here. And from that point of view, we can upgrade the ordnance on a lot of these platforms. And yeah, that's just what I'm thinking here. Having said all that, Captain Jonas alongside 3 other platforms that can provide rerolls for, that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Death Rain can drop a bomb, take a target lock. They all have bombs. There are some different flavors of bombs, some seismic charges, some proximity mines, some proton bombs. Just make sure, by the way, Agent Stack, if you're watching, that when you fly this, make sure that you like where those bombs are. You need to make sure that Captain Jonas is the one that you want to have with proximity mines, because that's the one that is the most difficult in terms of placement. Making sure it doesn't get in the way of your other ships. Is he leading the charge? Is he in the back? How does that work out best for you? And because there's just one device on each ship, they can be mixed around and matched around as best as you like. I'm not saying you should change that. I'm just saying that's the one thing I'd look at and go, you have to sort of practice this and decide which order to put those in. Apart from that, the shield upgrade, I think, can be spent on more bombs and ordnance, that kind of stuff. But really solid idea nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's move on to this final list we have here by Striatic.
Death Rain and Redline are the best aces. Trademark.
Fair enough. So, as suggested, we have Death Rain and Redline on the TIE Punisher alongside Sunterfell.
Yes.
I like that.
Death Rain has Trajectory Simulator, Barrage Rockets, Skilled Bombardier, Bomblet Generator, and Shield Upgrade.
Redline has Fire Control Systems, Barrage Rocket, Fifth Brother, and Shield Upgrade.
And Sunterfell has Outmaneuver and Shield Upgrade.
Now, before we dive into this, I do need to point out, this was posted basically like the day after, or like a few days after the points were released. So, this list is no reaction to what happened in Coruscant, no reaction to what's happening in the meta. So that's why it looks a bit more experimental than it is.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because Sunterfell typically doesn't have this many points stacked on him. We're seeing a lot of Sunterfells flying around with just like a 1-point talent or nothing.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, like that's an obvious change we can make, but it's not a critical thing I'm saying. I'm just saying we just know better now, and that's absolutely fine.
Once again, with both of these, because he wasn't sure, he's put Shield Upgrade on them. That can go.
A lot of early hype for Shield Upgrade, I must say.
Yeah.
I was never a big fan of it in first edition. I don't think it's gotten significantly better in second edition. And when you're spending points to do something that just slows the game down, as opposed to doing something proactive like bombs and rockets and that kind of stuff, you're not investing your points in the right places, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Shield upgrades and hull upgrade is great on like aces and stuff that can really effectively protect their health, not really on punishers. So that's definitely a change I'd make here. Barrage rockets is cool. Skill Bombardier, Bomblet Generator, not a punisher. It's 5 points, so it's the same as a proton bomb. It's a few points more than a seismic charge. Yes. I think Bomblet Generator only really gives you significant upside when you get to burn the shields and make more bombs and drop it more frequently. If it doesn't, it's really underperforming. And I think ultimately Proton Bombs already has 2 charges on it. You know you're going to consistently get all the value out of it. And that's why I tend to lean towards Proton Bombs a bit more. I'm not really a fan of the difference with bomblet generator, despite the fact that it now makes more sense. This is what it did in canon. It was never an infinite bomb generator. That design always annoyed me.
But also with the Punisher, if you were to put on proton bombs, you've still got the reload as well.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. You can also reload your bomber generator. Look, maybe that's the reason we have shield upgrade here, to have more fodder for the bomber generator. It's a bit more upside. Look, I think ultimately speaking, just take something with a certain amount of charges and make sure you consistently get them off.
Yeah.
That's going to get you better results overall. Now, just having said all this, I love both of the Punisher pilots, and I wanted to feature this one because we had both of them on the table at once. Both dropping bombs, doing all that kind of stuff. I think Redline probably wants a better piece of ordnance, but again, look, a lot of early hype for Fifth Brother, and I don't think it's really justified. It's useful, but you really want it more on ace platforms that see more dice, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So instead of barrage rockets, Fifth Brother, look at like proton torpedoes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Again, just doing what the meta does. I know it's boring, but it's meta for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Losing barrage rockets in Fifth Brother, you could probably put on a better rocket and a bomb.
Yeah, for sure.
Easily.
Rockets and bombs. It's proven effective. Proton torpedoes, seismics, proton bombs. You could put it on both with trajectory simulator or fire control system. It's really cool. I love the concept of this list. I love these three parts together. Sunterfell just doing whatever he wants to do while your two bombers just move around the table together and just alpha strike and bomb and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Feels like a really good option. Outmaneuver looks really fun on Sunterfell. I don't know if it's really justified for that point.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It's going to turn him into a more aggressive pilot, which is a lot of fun. And a really cool idea for a list. I do want to try and feature a lot of the things that were submitted really in the early days of 2nd edition, but as it turned out, we just got so many early submissions. The document's already like over 120 pages. It's ridiculous, guys. I really appreciate all the effort you guys have put in submitting all these lists.
Yes, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to support the Patreon, all the links for that are in the description. Thank you so much for my existing patrons for both submitting your lists and giving me ideas on what videos to make, and helping with that conversation helps a lot. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Reddit. Consider supporting the Patreon, and we'll catch you guys later on.
Bye.